Back in the big leagues and over the moon.
Welcome to the Landing Strip with Nick Lynham and Mikey Garcia, presented by From Financial.
Cool. That's you.
Holy, long time no see. Welcome back to the Landing Strip, presented by From Financial. As we're underway with the off season here, though I'm seeing in the chat early choices TK with what an underwhelming couple of days. And C. Yarish says, I agree, the Jets have done nothing. We're gonna dive into all of that, but I can't do this alone. Mikey, how you doing, buddy?
Boy, did I miss this. Boy, have I missed all of you guys. I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited to talk Jets again. It's been an interesting little bit of time away, so I'm excited to get going.
Yeah, and there's some things to talk about. Sounds like I'm going to be breaking the news to you here on some of it. Let's start off, because we haven't gone together in a while. Let's start back to the Jonathan Toews thing. Obviously, came into effect officially yesterday. The Winnipeg Jets sign Winnipeg's would be the word prodigious son.
Yeah, the prodigal
Jonathan
son.
Toews, the prodigal son. Jonathan Toews returns home on a 1-year, $2 million base deal with games played bonuses. Effectively, if you play 60 games, it's going to be a $4.6 million 1-year deal. If the Jets make the playoffs and he plays round one, I think it's every 50% of each round, there's another bonus. So if the Jets were a first-round elimination, he's about a 1-year, $5.3 million player. When you saw Johnny Toews was coming home, how are you feeling about that?
You know, it's there's two different sides of me. There's two wolves fighting right now internally. You know, it's the business side and it's the hockey side. I think the Jets hit an absolute home run when it comes to the business side of things on this deal. Being able to bring home a player like Jonathan Toews, who's such a big part of the community, the fabric of, you know, kind of Winnipeg sports, multiple-time Stanley Cup champion, you know, captain serious. He's represented Canada. He's done everything at every level, right? So on the business side of things, it makes absolutely 100% sense for the Jets to bring him in, get his name on a Winnipeg Jets jersey. They're going to make back his entire salary in Johnny Toews jerseys alone. You know what I mean? So
Which one are you getting?
Yeah, I think I'll hold off one more year. So from that side of it, I totally get it. Great, all around good feeling story. Am I thrilled about the hockey implications surrounding it? Not overly. I'm going to be honest. I'm not sure how he's going to look coming in 2 years away from the game. I'm real nervous about how that's going to be, and the fact that seems to be the answer at the moment at center that the Jets have looked to. And it's not so. I know without all of the bonuses, the base is the $2 million, and then, you know, it's all from games played and things above that. The issue I have with looking at it that way is that the Jets didn't sign him as a, well, you know, hey, hopefully he'll, you know, maybe play these games. They're expecting him to play those games. It doesn't look like they're going to be having somebody else come in and take that spot away from him. If he's coming in to play. The only way he doesn't get those games played is if there's some freak injury or something like that. So I'm fully expecting him to play the 60 plus and get in, you know, they'll probably get into that first round of the playoffs easily. So it's a $5 million.
Easily, eh?
I do. I still think they're going to still sneak in there into that first, you know, make it into that first round. So I'm going to have a tough time, you know, only looking at, it's just a $2 million gamble or what. It's not. It's a $5 million contract for your second line center for a guy who is on the wrong side of 30 and hasn't played hockey in 2 years. That's the other wolf that's yelling at me inside. So, you know, the feel good part of me is like, that's great. I love it. I love the story. And if it works out, man, fantastic. I think he gets, it's $7 million if they make it all the way to the Stanley Cup. Great. Money well spent if that's what ends up happening. I don't see him at the second line center in 2026 playoffs being able to carry that load. But again, I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, I feel you on the two Wolves. When I was coming up playing AAA, I switched my number to 19 because of Johnny Toews and Sakic before him.
Yep.
That was always my guy coming up, and quite the illustrious career. This is let's not undersell it. This is a big signing for Winnipeg as
Huge.
far as the nature of it, right? We know free agency is never going to be their game, and that is a big name, though at 37 years old and getting paid quite a bit. That's a big name to be coming into here. So there's some positives. Maybe if this team is in a buyer's position, that's a name that maybe if he's looking like he's back, can recruit some talent into Winnipeg. I also do think I'm a firm believer. Like, sports are sports, but when there's a good Hollywood story attached, it just adds so much to it.
Yep.
So I want to see a good story play out here. Johnny Toews, after years and years off, coming back and being able to provide something would be huge. But on the other side of it, the fact that he is the 2C bet or the 3C bet, depending on how you look at Lowry versus Toews, and Lowry starting the year on the IR,
Yep.
I do think there's a lot more risk in the bet than I've seen kind of portrayed elsewhere.
Yep.
The fact that those bonuses are simply for games played, there is a scenario where the Jets are paying Toews to play a lot of minutes, and he's maybe a 3C, 4C caliber player, and that's a big load for $5 million plus. That may distract some opportunity elsewhere. There's also the question, and I think they've kind of answered this question, though, so I'm not as concerned with it. Historically, when the Jets have had bonus overages, they've tried to keep it in that same accounting year.
Yes.
So even though the contract's been structured to pay out potentially $5 million more, and I hope Jonathan Toews makes $7 million this year.
Hell yeah.
That means the Winnipeg Jets won the Cup.
Yep.
One of my questions, and I do think we've kind of seen an answer to it, is would they be able to go over with that? Because those bonuses, if they go over, just become dead cap next year. And I think it's hard to imagine the Jets being a $104 million US dollar cap team next year. So like having an overage like that wouldn't matter as much to their big picture. And the fact that until today, I think the door closed today, but they were willing to pay Nik Ehlers should he have chosen Winnipeg. I think that shows that they are willing to bring those bonuses over to the next year, because to fit Ehlers, Sandberg, Velarde under the cap, they would have needed that bonus space.
Yep.
So I'm kind of optimistic there compared to years past, because he does provide that unique opportunity. The other side of it, though, is the fact that it's been probably 5 or 6 years since he's been a 2C caliber NHL player, and obviously had the medical history. Says he's feeling good, but feeling good at 37 versus feeling good at 31. We've seen what this league does, and it's gotten a lot quicker and a lot younger in a hurry. So I do have some questions about that being the big bet. But at the end of the day, I'm buying a Toews Heritage jersey. I'm looking forward to – you know what I'm looking forward to the most next year before we get into some of the mud here? Opening night is going to be unbelievable next year.
Yep.
You're getting the President's Trophy banner.
Yep.
Hellbuck Hart,
Yep.
Scheifele after that last game, and the Jonathan Toews introduction.
Who's
That's
taking
going to be a phenomenal game one.
Who's taking the opening face-off for game one? Is it Mark Scheifele or is it Johnny Toews at home?
Ooh.
Because we know Lowry will be out, so there's no question if it's going to be the captain or not. So is it going to be?
It's got to be Toews.
Is it going to be? Is he going to get it?
It's got to be Toews.
We'll start taking some bets on that one.
So obviously an interesting story, but I think it does carry some risk.
Yep.
And the other side of the risk with the health side of it, and I've seen a lot of Gabe Landeskog comps, which I still think is a little optimistic, given the age difference and the gap between when they were last productive. If you followed Gabe Landeskog, there was a lot of setbacks once he got to the regular practices and conditioning.
Yep.
And I just do wonder if that potentially does end up playing in, right? And then you kind of end up in that buff spot where you committed to a guy and then didn't have him. So I do think there's risk here when you look at that situation, but it's a great story. I want to see it pay off. I'm a big fan of Jonathan Toews' career, and I think there's stuff he could bring to this org, even if he's not a 2C level. Face-offs are undoubtedly going to get better. That leadership, he's won 3 cups. Like, those kinds of things do matter. But I think there's far more risk with making that as the big bet than's kind of been made out.
Yep, I totally agree. It's like I said, the story of it is wonderful. There's so much to be excited about when it comes to just the impact that'll have on the community itself, right? You can't beat that. The only problem is if that is what the answer is supposed to be at 2C, there's so much more risk than not. It just, we don't know what's going to happen when he's coming in cold like this. So yeah, I want it to work out. I would love the story. Old man strength, you know what, coming in and just willing it. We saw it happen at the World Cup with 36-year-old Leo Messi, right? So why not Johnny Toews?
Luke Shipley over on Twitch says, I heard they gave Toews the super soldier serum in India. He will be fine at practice. And Julian says, Julian's kind of where I'm at. JT is a good ad for the bottom six. Like, I fully expect Jonathan Toews is going to come back and be an NHL caliber player.
Yep.
I just wonder about how high in the lineup that might be when you're looking at where, in my opinion, the Jets need a top 40 level C to be able to pair with Mark Scheifele and have a chance to win a cup. And I think that's a lofty bet. And Julian says here, but some people are thinking he's going to be a comeback and score 70 points and be a legit 2C. I'm a realist. If he could score 30 plus points, that's good. It's kind of the bar I have. If he's a 30 to 35 point player, I think you got to be happy coming off what he just had
100%.
In his life.
It just, if you look at what the lineup is it good enough for the Jets to go farther in the playoffs than they did last year? And I don't know if Toews in the 2C spot is making the Jets that much better. Toews in the 4C spot or the 3C spot while Lowry is hurt is definitely something that could lean in that direction. But we just, at 2, it's hard to stomach that's going to be the answer for a deep playoff run.
Yes, so that was our only news for a bit. And we made our way to the draft. So the Jets had 5 picks this year. First pick being at 28th overall after winning the President's Trophy and being knocked out of the second round. And admittedly, I would not take me as a prospect guru. I did zero looking into at this draft. I've watched nothing except for development camp yesterday.
Yep.
But I've done a lot of reading from the people that have scouted this draft. And I got to say, I'm kind of intrigued by their first round pick, Sasha Boumadine. I probably mispronounced that, but left shot defenseman, Swedish left shot defenseman. So I look forward to who we're arguing about in the next 4 years playing above him. That was my first reaction is, goddamn, another European lefty that's going to get buried on the old depth chart.
Don't worry, he'll win AHL Defenseman of the Year twice, and then we'll walk and be good.
And that is where my brain went. But so I went to dev camp yesterday, and I'll say this. Especially watching drills, you're not really looking for standouts or anything, but his skating really did pop off. And when I was reading around, when you're looking at 28th overall, everybody's a dart throw. In my belief, whether I'm watching baseball right now, where the Jays are beating up the Yankees, or hockey prospects, I think as you get further into any type of draft, you're not getting a sure thing. You want to get somebody that has plus attributes or high-end attributes somewhere that you could kind of work their game off of. And I was reading a lot of people have him as an NHL level skater already, and likely to be an above average NHL skater. And you kind of saw that in his clips. He definitely likes to jump up with it. He was the youngest player in all of NCAA last year, which is, I don't think, something to sneeze at for a defenseman. So the first half of the year, he played a lot on the third pair and got more opportunity as the year went on. He set a record for the most points at the U18 that following spring, and then went to the Jets #1 overall. When you have plus skating and you could transport the puck in this generation of the NHL, those are the defensemen I like to see you taking a bet on, and I'm actually really intrigued by what I've read, the clips, and we're talking not very much, but clips of games I could find, and then what I saw at Dev Camp, I like the dart throw at the end of the first round for the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, when you get to that part of the draft, like you said, it's a bit of a lottery, right? You don't really know if you're going to be getting an NHL caliber player or not. But the Jets' pick with this one does seem pretty safe. Skating's one of those things where you don't want to have to try to have a guy in his late 20s learn how to skate at an NHL level, right? We've seen that over and over again. It doesn't really work that way. So if he can come in already with that aspect, and the things that he needs to work on are form and things like that, that's teachable. That's something that you can work with. And yeah, it feels like a pretty safe pick in a spot where you don't get a lot of safe choices. So it'll be interesting to see. I saw that the Athletic comped him to Mikey Matheson. So if you can get something like that going, that'd be interesting.
There was also a Gustav Forsling comp, and after the playoffs we just watched, signed me up for a bit
No
of that.
doubt.
They also got an interesting one. So there was in the third round they got a Winnipegger, Owen Martin, which cool to see. He was a bit of a late bloomer last year in Spokane. Though I thought Sean Reynolds, if you go listen to their post-draft show, had a really good, insightful breakdown of Martin, as he knew someone that's kind of followed his career.
Excellent.
So I'd leave that and go listen to Sean's take of what he heard on Owen Martin. I just don't got much to offer on the prospect side this time around. But I wanted to bring up Victor Klingzel in the 5th round. Kind of an interesting prospect here. And watching him at Dev Camp, I could totally see why the scouting reports I was reading, I saw that in day one, let's put it that way.
Yep.
So he's a highly offensive player, and he's got some nice skills up front. He was ripping the puck. You could tell he's confident with the puck, but every scouting report I read talked about how he's got no drive to get to the middle of the ice, that he's scared out there, yada, yada, yada. And obviously those aren't great traits you want to be hearing from scouts, so this is a young kid still. Watching him at Dev Camp, and we're talking drill, so this isn't a game. He's either going to be someone that pops out of the 5th round, or he's going to be the world's best beer league player one day. I saw the skill set, but you could also see the shyness even in a camp like that.
Yeah, you'll get that right with undersized guys. Sometimes they'll either go in one direction and, they'll take it real hard and try to be a pest all the time, or the ones that go, ow, I don't like getting hit, fuck off, and kind of shy away from it. But yeah, the offensive skills are all there. The talent is absolutely right there. So like you said, he could either be slotting in and getting to ride shotgun on a wing with maybe some bigger players, or the best beer league player that Finland's ever seen. Or Sweden, pardon me, Sweden.
And one thing we've seen, and I think this is a credit, though we haven't seen as much prospects churn into NHLers. I think this is a credit to the Jets in recent drafts, and I think there's a lot of potential for it in this class, where Owen Martin seems like he'll be geared for a bigger role next year. Sasha Budamin, he'll be geared for a bigger role next year. If Klingzel pops playing a bit of pro out in Sweden, we might have a better idea of where the ceiling is next summer than this one, where I think those are guys that are kind of primed to take another big step next year. And we've seen that kind of in the Jets' recent drafts, specifically Kevin He, who even at Dev Camp is an absolute bulldog out there. That's one of those guys that you probably hate to play summer hockey against. It was pretty fun to watch. Really, really like what I saw there. And a guy like Kieran Walton, right, who was a 6th-round pick and then had a first-round level season last year. So I'm actually really intrigued by the limited amount of picks they had. I think they did pretty well in those spots, and we could see – we'll have a better idea, I think, this time next year on what those guys could be. But I think they made some interesting bets where you could kind of bet on a D+1 jump from them, which when you're drafting prospects, you're looking into the future, right? So
yep, absolutely.
I think that was good. A fine draft, though. Of course, like I said, I haven't studied this at all. I'm just going based on what I've been able to read and watch since. We moved into free agency. Free agency time for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, there's some good news, Mikey. You want the good news first?
Ooh, yeah. Let's. No. Hit me with the bad news first. Then we'll get into the good news to try to make ourselves feel better, or whichever you think is better.
Okay, so let's just go through the Jets list of transactions, and we'll talk about them all, and we'll get to some of the good and the bad. Let me pull it up in order here. So signings, we got some big ones. Who was the first one yesterday? They signed. Honestly, I'd never heard of them until yesterday, which is never a fun sign, though I'm hearing could be a decent 4th liner. Cole Koepke, 27-year-old, grew up buddies with Dylan Sandberg and Neil Pionk.
If anybody plays real depth fantasy hockey, you would know Koepke.
You had him on your team or what?
Yep.
There you go. If you grew up in Hermantown, you will be a Winnipeg Jet at some point. That's what I'm
Absolutely.
kind of learning here.
That's hilarious.
And then Kevin Cheveldayoff went bang, bang, landing Tanner Pearson, Mark Scheifele's old line mate and junior.
Yep.
Yes, he is still kicking around.
Wow.
On a 1-year, $1 million deal. And then it kind of seemed like the Winnipeg Jets, and I think this was smart. We know free agency is never going to be their day. Anyone getting their hopes up for big signings on July 1 at this point is just doing it to themselves. And as much as everyone gets frustrated, I think it's the secret sauce in Winnipeg is them not being able to go make those mistakes we see on July 1st.
Yep.
I don't know. I'm kind of, it's one of the few days I'm kind of calm paying attention to what's going around the Winnipeg Jets. Oh, there's a big contract I wanted nothing to do with.
Yep.
Oh, glad that guy's off the board.
Yeah.
So it started out early in the day because Drager was kind of pumping the idea of Brock Besser was the number 1 pick for Winnipeg.
Yeah.
He re-signed in Vancouver, which surprised the hell out of me. And then you see they get those 2 depth signings, and it goes quiet. And the whole league's clearly waiting for Nik Ehlers at this point.
Yep.
And I believe the Winnipeg Jets were keeping cap space aside for that as well. Day 2, we still don't have a Nik Ehlers decision. But out of nowhere this afternoon, Gustav Nyquist. 1 year, $3.25 million. Your instant reaction to Gustav Nyquist being a Winnipeg Jet?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. That's it's not a bet I was expecting the Jets to go and make. The only way it makes sense is if they pretty much know that Nik Ehlers is not going to be coming back to take that spot. To me,
that was my takeaway.
That's
too.
the big, that's just what that one feels like, unfortunately, which sucks, which absolutely sucks, because I was really hoping they were going to find a way to kind of make things work with Ehlers on a contract, let him test the market, see what's out there, and maybe come back to the table and find a way that works. This one to me says that it's not happening. So yeah, that sucks. I'm not happy about that whatsoever, to be honest.
1 year deal, 3.25 mil, 35-year-old, 13 30-plus-year-olds likely to be in the starting lineup.
Oldest lineup
my
maybe in the league next year?
What's that?
Oldest lineup in the league maybe next year?
It's going to be in that combo, and we'll get there in a second. It's funny. So this morning on Twitter, I put out, I hope Mason Appleton signs before Nik Ehlers so he doesn't become the pivot. And he signed right before Gustav Nyquist in Detroit. So you don't have to worry about Mason Appleton in Winnipeg next year.
Oh, boy. Thank God.
There's a positive until Chevy trades for him at the 2026 deadline for a second-round pick. God. But he's out of our lives for a little bit here. Brandon Tanev has headed down to Utah on a 2-year deal or 3-year deal? 2 or 3-year deal at 2.75.
Yep.
So he's gone. We don't have to worry about that. Some addition by subtraction in Winnipeg. But yeah, as soon as the Gustav Nyquist deal came in, my takeaway was Ehlers' camp has informed them that they are out, would be my way to look at that. They just don't have the cap room. They're sitting at about $19 million. Gabe Velarde's going to take up 6 to 7 of that, I imagine.
Yep.
Dylan Sandberg's going to take up $6 million of that, and that already brings you to 13. And Nik Ehlers on the market is getting offers in the $9.5 million range from some of the smartest teams in the league. It must be he's a valuable player or something.
It's almost like he has an absolute incredible amount of value to your middle six.
So I'll say this, though, and I'm a weirdo, and I don't expect any sane individual to be happy with where the Winnipeg Jets sit right now. They are clearly a worse team than last year. I think anyone that's trying to tell you otherwise is leading you astray. And honestly, I think this is, in my opinion and how I see things, the best case scenario for the Winnipeg Jets right now. I really do, Mikey.
How so?
You got to stick with me here. But
all right, you're gonna have to. I'm struggling here.
I'm here to bring the optimism. I'm here to say that the team's in a good spot.
Save me.
Though it's tricky. It's tricky. So, the first 2 days of free agency or especially the first day, was never going to be Kevin Cheveldayoff's wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You're looking for him if he's going to make a move. Once the debt, everything settles, after everyone spends like drunken sailors, and then teams realize they gotta look elsewhere, or they gotta move off a piece because they have too much of something, or they're tight to the cap. Those are kind of Chevy's wheelhouses, right?
Yep.
So I wouldn't bet that the Winnipeg Jets are done their summer just yet. Just yet. I think you could see a trade. Now they definitely need a top 6 winger or center.
So they need a top 6 player, period.
They need a top 6 player with Nik Ehlers signed
Wherever you can find
Tampa.
one. Yeah, exactly.
They need that if they want to take a step or at least be in the mix again next year. As things stand right now, this team is not a cup contender. It's not.
Yeah.
They went into the summer to kind of get to a Florida level, needing a top 4 right-handed D, a top 6 center, and Ehlers replacement.
Yep.
And this is why I was so frustrated, despite the President's Trophy, with the inactivity for the 12 months prior, because the reality of the business side. The Jets were never going to be in a position cap-wise to fill all those needs moving forward. Last year was the big spot for that window. Now, that being said, I think they might stumble ass backwards into some good news here.
Hit me.
Look at this lineup you have posted.
Yep.
Now, Adam Lowry is going to miss the first 2 months.
Yes.
Everyone, including Kevin Cheveldayoff, is saying we're going to need some patience with Toews coming around. I think that's fair.
Yep, 100%.
I'm not sure they make the playoffs next year, brother, with a slow start.
God, from President's
Trophy, think it's a bad thing.
From President's Trophy to missing the playoffs, can you imagine?
They're going to be in the mix. I'm not saying that they're not in the mix. They're not a contender, and Utah's coming. St. Louis is still going to be there. Minnesota's coming. I'm going to pitch you something.
Okay.
And again, I don't think this is a bad thing, and I'm a weirdo. Everyone wants a cup right now. I don't think the Winnipeg Jets had a realistic path to a Stanley Cup. I'm gonna list some things off here.
Okay.
The 18-19 New York Islanders went from 48 wins to 35 wins.
Yep.
The 21-22 Calgary Flames went from 50 wins to 38 wins.
Oh, yep.
The Rangers last year went from 55 wins to 39 wins.
Oh, yep.
I don't think it's out of the picture, and I actually think the Winnipeg Jets are in a real good spot right now today to go either pathway at this point. They're going to be a bubble team right now. They're going to be fighting for a wild card spot. They're going to be in the fight. Connor Hellebuyck gives them a big ceiling. They still have one line that could score.
Yep.
Only one line that could score.
And that line is going to play every game together again like it did. And the
defense is back intact. And the system's good.
Yep.
They'll be in the mix.
They've got bottom 6 players for miles. They are deep on third and fourth line guys. They could fill 2 teams of third and fourth lines. No problem about it. It's the fact that there's no second line. It doesn't exist right now. It's Cole Perfetti and then a big wet fart on who you're going to be pairing him up with, especially especially when Lowry's missing those first 2 months. So, yeah, it's going to be, again, real heavily relied on Connor Scheifele, Velarde. Josh Morrissey's going to play about half the game every game, and Hellebuyck needs to go out and win another heart.
And I'm saying this. I'm not ruling out either direction here because I think Kevin Cheveldayoff can still go shopping and get a top 6 player. And then we're talking about this team in the top 3 in the Central and likely buying at the deadline. So what I'm trying to convey here is I think as it stands,
so
they have an off-ramp and an on-ramp.
To throw a little bit of maybe wet fart on it as well. Are the Jets really going to want to spend that $6 million to start the season? No. They're not going to want to if they don't have to. They're going to re-sign all the guys that they get signed up. I think Toews gives them the big cover of the big name ad, and that's the route they're going to go. I don't know if there's a trade in there for Chevy still to come. I hope you're right. I just don't see it.
So I'm gonna talk this out. So let me cook here for a bit because Luke Shipley says. This is a crazy take, and we're not one Nik Ehlers away from the playoffs. And I don't think this is just about Nik Ehlers, to be quite frank.
No, there's regression from a lot of spots.
I think losing Adam Lowry for at least 2 months with a hip that seems to have been a problem for a couple of years based on how Chevy talked about it is going to be a big loss for this team at 5-on-5. This during a period where Jonathan Toews is going to be trying to get up to speed. So your center group is Toews, Scheifele, Nemestikov. We don't know. Nobody knows what you're getting from Toews early.
Yep.
And no Lowry. You have 30-plus-year-olds. And you had, 8 guys on career years plus one of the best power plays in the league history.
Yep.
I'm not sure all that goes right. And I've always thought, both on the good and the bad, that the Winnipeg Jets mirrored the New York Rangers. So when the Rangers were making Eastern Conference Finals, it was giving me more hope that the Winnipeg Jets, despite missing some key spots in their lineup, could get there because they did it on the back of a hot power play and a great goaltender in Shesterkin. And then they fell off the next year.
Yep.
I'm just not ruling it out, and I actually think the Winnipeg Jets are in a really good spot for either scenario because the way that the free agent market shifted, and there's another theory I want to get to that's going to play into this.
Excellent.
The way the free agency market shifted, the Winnipeg Jets don't have a single bad contract on their books. I am sorry for the Neil Pionk slander, but watching how much was paid out today, you can move Neil Pionk 7x7, no problem.
Yeah.
You were seeing a lot of guys in the mid-tier of lineups that aren't quite as good as like the Ninos and the Ifellos getting decent picks in return. You're going to have off-ramps if the team isn't in the playoffs at the deadline to do some good things and pave some holes.
Yep.
It looks all right. The true time to sell big was this summer when there was only 2 sellers, but that wouldn't have been a popular thing to do.
Nope.
I just think that they're in a position where if it's going well, they're going to be able to buy. If it's not going well, they have assets to move off of. And I just look at this team and I wonder, it's old. With their ads in Pearson, Nyquist, it's not necessary. Toews, it's not going to be quick. In a league that's progressively gone younger, more aggressive, and quicker, I do have concerns about next year. But this is where I'm weird. I think that's the best thing that could ever happen to them. We talk about the need for top-end talent.
Yep.
If that pick, Hellebuck carries them too hard. But if that pick could slip into the top 10 in a draft like the 2026 one, I think that's a good thing. All I'm saying is if you're a Jets fan, think back to 2020 or 2015 and the soft reset we saw there and what it led to 2 years later. I think there's some optimism to be found. I really do.
If we're going down that road, oh man, you're going to have a very, very turbulent fan base. There's going to be some interesting things coming out if the Jets start to move down that road. You know what? I agree with you that it probably is the best long-term thing for the Jets to have that down of a year, get a high pick, and find a way maybe to do not a rebuild, but a retool, right? A quick kind of 2-year retool of the lineup.
You do not strip it down in Winnipeg. Nope. Yeah, I'm not suggesting that at all. I want that loud and clear. Yeah,
not calling to tear it all down, but like you said, a very similar retool to what we saw, where you struggle for a season and a half before you start putting it together. The only thing is, I wonder if that is going to be a route the Jets want to go down right after winning a President's Trophy, right after going on a run that they made a shitload of money on, not to break the kayfabe, but
I don't know.
Yeah, they like that. They like those first round playoff dates, man. It's a big thing, and if you can do that and not spend all the way up to the cap each season and still find ways to kind of sneak in, I wonder if that starts to lean to be the way that they look at things more so than just, what is the best way to win a cup now kind of thing. I'm worried. That's all. I'm just worried.
I'm going to come back to that for a second. Luke Shipley, got to give him a shout out. I followed you on Twitter for a while. You saying something half positive on the Pionk contract shows a lot of growth. Hey, it kind of handcuffs some things that they could do around the edges in this free agent period or trade period. But if you look at some of the deals, I will gladly watch Neil Pionk play hockey for 7x7 over Ivan Provorov getting $8.5 million. Some silly shit being thrown out there.
That was ridiculous.
A guy like Ken Holland still has a job, so you could dump Pionk at some point.
You
We're
know,
good.
people like to do the Chevy at the lake meme. That's a good thing on July 1st most of the time. Let's make sure he doesn't have his phone, because let other teams make those mistakes.
Okay, so there's a few things I want to get to, but I want to stick on this for a second. So I'm going to come back to the Ehlers question from Colton right away here. Let me be clear here. I don't think this is plan A or plan B. I think this is a situation they might fall ass backwards into.
Yeah.
And if they were, I've seen them handle this situation well in the past.
Okay.
And I don't think it would be a bad thing for the organization for what this team is ironically close to a cup, but far from one, with the pieces that they need to acquire to make it happen. That I'm okay with a soft reset. I really am. And they have the asset base to actually pull it off. Like these 1 year, the one thing I really did not want to see this year, especially with like the Brock Besser thing, was I didn't want to see them get locked into a long-term bad money deal, throwing bad money to try and salvage the window. I would have respected them for it. You got to take your shots. But just from how I see assets and everything like that, I would have hated that opportunity. They have short-term deals, veterans, the type of assets teams are going to look at the deadline. That's cool for me. And if this works out and they're buying instead, hey, that works for me too. I just think, despite how it plays out and the frustration, and this team is a clearly worse team than last year, they're in a position that they could pivot two directions, and I think that's okay. The reason why I want the soft reset, and I want to see that happen, is they do need the cheap, high upside talent to start coming in underneath, and they've kind of struggled at the draft the last few years. But I also have another theory for you, and I think it's going to make things even more difficult for Winnipeg. We're so used to a flat cap, right? And we've seen how that's kind of created some parity. I think those days are going to be over the next 5 years. And I think you're going to see the NHL become a bit of a haves and haves not league. Similar to how the NBA was prior to their latest CBA, that's kind of seemingly helping teams that rebuild properly.
Yep.
With just how quickly you're seeing these cap jumps now projected into the future. We've seen it reported Calgary won't be a cap team this year. Ottawa was reported not to be. Winnipeg's getting there. The fact that they were still on Ehlers, I think they would get there in the right scenario, but not a guarantee. And I think you're going to see a lot of the smaller markets in this team have to start looking at it a little differently. And you're going to see the big money teams, or the teams just coming out of rebuilds now that have that talent locked up cheap compared to where the cap's going, are going to have such a significant advantage. The teams that have the money, like the Vegases, the Floridas, are going to be able to dump off the mistakes they make and have new guys come in. So it's going to be easier for them in this world. I think a team like Winnipeg, it's already been a struggle. I think it's going to become even more of one. That I do think a soft retool will set them up much better than pushing for wildcard 2, throwing some more chips in, and being kind of stuck still. So that's just my theory here. That's my theory on where this league's kind of progressing and why I think it would be prudent for Winnipeg to be aggressive in that type of scenario.
Yep.
Just to reset themselves, to give themselves another smaller window. Because if you ask me today, pending, offseason's not over, pending more movement, the idea of a cup window it's not something I'm going to talk about on this show because I don't see it right now.
No, with the current lineup as is, without a top 2 center, a top 2 winger, or like a second line winger, second line center, like without all these ads currently constructed, it feels a lot like the beginning of last season where we were talking about going, man, this is great right now, and just wait till they add, except that I don't think we even have the heights and the ceiling that we had with last season. So that for me is where the struggle really is coming in, with the way that the lineup has kind of fallen into it this year with those 1-year contracts, with the Toews deal. It's not that they're bad in a vacuum. It's what it means overall for the lineup and what it means overall for the cup window. And if they do struggle real bad, if, Hellebuck has an off year, if there are more, if Scheifele misses time, whatever it is, they do have a track record of being able to come out of that looking okay. I worry of, are you always going to be able to do that every single time? Caitlin over on YouTube makes a really good point that Chevy has done quite well when his hand is forced. The problem is he almost always waits until his hand is forced.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not that he makes bad decisions. A lot of times he can make the right call. It's just a little bit too late, or whatever the thing is. So I'm just worried about having to go down that road and make it. It's a little bit more risky than if they were proactive this time around.
When you look at the pros and the cons of the management team, this is a scenario I trust them in. So maybe that's where my self-belief's coming from. I think me and Luke over on Twitch, who says there, this team has both a plethora of top-end talent and a ton of assets, which is strange for a team like this. We just lack the second punch, and either they develop their assets into that or trade into that. And that's kind of the same way I see it, though I think they're going to have to trade out and take a step back in to develop that second push. I don't think they're going to be able to acquire it, especially with where this league's going to start trending here. So I think we see the Jets in a similar vein. I just think they're going to have to go one direction to be able to accomplish that quickly. Or else my fear is, and the reason why I use the Rangers, the Isles, and the Flames, it was a very specific reason, is I do think the Winnipeg Jets are kind of set up to have a bit of a back tailing like those orgs did in a similar vein. And now we see Calgary, who's frustratingly close, that could use the top-end talent, keep pushing for playoff spots, but they don't have the top-end talent to actually do anything with it, and they're going to keep missing. And then on the reverse, now that Lou's not there, because Lou was kind of keeping that train moving longer than he ever should have, we see Darsh get aggressive with his best asset. And all of a sudden, the Isles in one offseason, I actually see the end of their little retool already. I really liked what Matthew Darsh did in Long Island. And then the Rangers, they're just such a popular team. They're going to keep trying to buy their way out of problems. Yeah. But I think they've created more problems by going down that route. And they have the advantage of the big money behind them.
Yeah, it's the Jets are facing two different doors right now, right? There are two paths that they could end up going down. It's going to be interesting to see which one really plays out. You could get a Dallas-style rebuild, like Luke Shipley says, or you could kind of fall into obscurity the way that like the Islanders had there for quite a while.
And I'd feel better about a Dallas style if they were hitting on their picks the last 5-6 years. That's kind of where it's become a bit of an issue, is other than Perfetti and Sandberg, they haven't hit on much in the last 6-7 drafts. And that's why you're seeing a bit of that stagnation where they're in that tough spot where they do have good top end players. They have the best goalie in the world. Like, there's still a lot to like about this roster, but they're kind of stuck.
They're stuck, and they need the top end talent. I don't want to be too much of a villain today, but like Mark Scheifele going into this next season, if he doesn't have at minimum a 1B center behind him, I don't think is enough if you're planning on winning a cup. If you're one of the people who still think that the Stanley Cup window is open, that the President's Trophy team from last year is going to roll, into next season, because there's lots of fans who still think that's the trajectory that they're on. That means you think Mark Scheifele is still good enough to be a number one center in a Stanley Cup final on a winning team. I'm not sure if that's still going to be there for another season. So I'm worried about that top end talent. I'm hoping you're right. I'm hoping that they can kind of fall into a soft reset and bounce back real big like they did in the 2017 year.
So interesting convo to run by you here. Colton Peters brought up, what are your thoughts on Darren Dreger talking about how Ehlers felt the lights were too bright in Winnipeg at certain moments? So there's been a lot of leaks around Ehlers. That one definitely stood out because apparently Toronto's poking around on Ehlers, but the belief is he doesn't want to be under the spotlight. You hear that quote. What do you think of that?
So if we're taking the quote at complete face value, that it's absolutely true, that's what he said, right? If we're operating on that aspect of it, I actually don't. This may not be a popular opinion. I don't mind that from players. There are some guys who aren't chasing the bright lights, who aren't chasing to be the number one guy. And that's fine. There's still, for some guys, this is more of a job than it is a production, right? For some guys, this is more of just going to work and doing a thing than it is, performing for, like a professional wrestling event or whatever. So I honestly don't mind it if that's what he's looking for. If he's looking for a quiet place somewhere, down south where he can not get massively criticized when he's having a cold streak. Sure. Hey, it takes all types, right? The NHL, you've got hundreds of players that are going to be in there. Not everyone is going to be, the guy that I was just talking about. Not everyone's going to be Mark Scheifele, who studies film, who's into it, who is so, I want to be the best. Some guys are okay just kind of going out there and doing it. So it honestly, again, that's probably not a popular opinion. I'm probably going to get roasted for that, but it doesn't bug me.
So I'm of two minds here. Everyone knows I'm a big Ehlers guy. I think that would be a real soft truth if that was true and fully accurate, because this market is definitely not bright compared to some of the big ones. And the other one is if that's accurate, and I want to see where he signs, because there's going to be some spots where it's hard to justify that being a true thing. The other side of it is he's the biggest UFA, and he's, in my opinion, rightly taking his time talking to teams. It sounds like he's really prioritized talking to coaching staff. Clearly, the fit matters, and that's what Friedman's been hammering home. Is he asked and wanted more out of Winnipeg and never got it. He's ironically, if his idea was to keep the spotlight off, he's ironically put it on him in a big way.
Yep.
Because there's always going to be a spotlight on the big UFA signing of the summer.
Yep.
So we'll see where that one goes, because I do think that is a bit, we'll use the term soft if that is accurate.
I do also want to clarify and say I don't buy it. I don't believe a fucking word Darren Dreger says. He's a mouthpiece for the organization more than anything else. And that's something your salty ex says about you after you break up with them. They weren't ready to be with me, okay? All right? We were just like, I was too intense for them. So like they couldn't handle it. That's what Chevy's saying by that. So take that with a massive grain of salt as well. I don't actually buy that's what he said, but if that's how I feel about it.
It's funny you say that, because my first takeaway was that the Jets were using Dreger to kind of soften the blow here, and then the Ehlers camp was using Friedman to parlay his thoughts. So I do think when you start seeing different insiders talking differently about a situation, that you're seeing a divorce play out and trying to massage things from both sides of it. So we'll see. I'm guessing he's gone, likely to the Eastern Conference. So there's some Colorado smoke, and that certainly wouldn't be fun.
Yep.
Here's a question for you. And Caitlin says this, and this is how I think about this too. I do understand that if you're playing in Edmonton, Toronto, Montreal, and New York, where you get ripped to shreds for every turnover, but the Winnipeg media is usually very defensive of players. And I tend to agree with that too. I find it hard to imagine in this market, and how I perceive how this market is covered at times. It's hard to imagine a player feels too much pressure in Winnipeg, given the realities of other markets.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I don't buy it that it's actually what the case is. It's he wants a bigger role, and he deserves. It's not even that he wants it. He deserves a bigger role. The production that he's put up with the minutes that he has had are better than anybody else who's played those type of minutes before, since we've been looking at these type of statistics. He can do more. He wants that opportunity. This is his time for his last big contract kind of thing. He deserves to go out there and find what he's worth. And he's absolutely going to get more than what the Jets probably had offered him. The funny thing is, if the Jets had actually been willing to give him the role that, again, not that he demands or is asking or what, that he deserved, that his play and his production absolutely deserved. If they had given him the ice time and the opportunities that would have come along with that, he probably does stay in Winnipeg at a rate that is less than he gets on the open market. It's the fact that we've continually taken him for granted, essentially, the entire time through, that he's now gone, well, okay, I'm going to go out there and see what my other options are. It's a lot like a relationship, right? It's no different in that aspect. He wasn't feeling appreciated. He let that be known, and we still said, yeah, that's all right. And, it's kind of here where we're at now.
Yeah, Harjivan says, Nick, are you ready to watch 41 home games of 2C Johnny Toews? I'm ready for game 1. Ask me that question at about game 20. He's got a long runway from me here.
Yeah, again,
I want to, as much as I question, and here's a part of it too. We saw a lot of the 35 plus deals get signed this year.
Yep.
And he got paid the most out of guys like Giroux, Ben, who was the other one? Patty Kane. I just think that you added so much more risk by approaching it the way they did. I'm excited to see it play out, though. I really do hope it works out.
Yeah, it's not. We're not shitting on Jonathan Toews. We're not shitting on bringing him in at all, like whatsoever. This is like I said, the feel good part of it is absolutely incredible. And if he has any type of positive production, that's a fucking win. The guy's been away from the game from injury for multiple years. He's coming in, like we said, on the opposite end of 35. It's a fantastic story if he can come in and be an NHL player. The only problem is that if that is the only move that they've done at center, and we're going to be going into the year with Toews as the clear-cut choice at 2C, I don't think the Jets are a better team than they were last year, and I don't think that they're going to be progressing, into the playoffs any farther than they did. And that sucks because they deserve it. They, and when I say the fans, right? The ones who are looking at it, they want that run. They got a taste of it last year, and they want it to keep going. So that's where my issue with the Toews signing is. Not that it's a bad signing, not that we're not happy to have him here. It's just if that is the only big thing coming in at 2C, I don't think this is a better team than last year. I don't even think it's as good of a team as last year, nowhere near.
Agreed. Luke says it. I'm going to step up and say it. JT might be the guy for 2C. I hope so, man. It'd be the best story in the NHL next year. I hope it happens. It's it's a big bet for me at 37. Some interesting questions in the YouTube chat, though. Let's get to them. Logan Underwood, as a Red Wings fan, what can we expect from Mason Appleton? So I'll preface this by saying I am Mason Appleton's biggest hater, and the only thing I'll ever remember is sitting at that end of the Dallas ice in Game 6 and watching him miss a wide open net. But that being said, one of the biggest problems for Mason Appleton in Winnipeg was the fact the coaching staff played him as a top 6 winger. Yeah. If you're playing him as a bottom 6, ideally fourth line winger, you're going to be more than fine with him. He works hard, plays a very simple game. You know what to expect from him. And when it comes to offense, expect very little. He could skate a bit. He's kind of a frustrating player in the sense, and I really got this feeling about him watching him more in person this year, was he honestly looks like he's just a half second to a 3/4 second away from doing something really good. He's just late to the decision making that puts everything else behind. But he's a simple dime a dozen guy. He'll come in, he'll give you an honest effort. Just don't expect too much. He's an NHLer. He's an NHLer.
Yeah,
I actually thought the number Detroit got him on was less than I expected. So clearly the market wasn't as hot for him as we in Winnipeg kind of thought it might.
That's because everybody else had eyes as well and watched him in the playoffs. It's where offense goes. Yeah, he's one of the spots where offense goes to die. So if you're not playing him in any type of offensive role, he'll be fine. He can learn the system. He can play with whatever center that you want him to play with. Just don't expect any type of offense whatsoever coming out of him. Like you said, he's at minimum a half a second behind, kind of with the decision at all points. You can. One of my favorite things to do was there was a drinking game where every time Mason Appleton has a chance coming up on the side of the net where he completely skates past the net with the puck, take a drink. You'll be drunk by the second period.
Probably. The puck does go to die there.
God.
Luke Shipley asks, I own a Mason Appleton jersey. Can't decide whether to keep it or redo the name on it. You got to keep it. You got to keep it. If you bought that sucker, you got to keep Appleton.
No, you have to wear the scarlet letter on that.
At least with Appleton, you could put it in a frame and put it behind a nice bar and it fits, you know?
Put the drink in front. Put the bottle in front. I like it.
Yeah, there's a decorative piece to the Mason Appleton jersey.
Just get them to add an S to it and you're set.
Caitlin also says, and there was one other question I wanted to get to earlier too. Actually, I'll get there. Caitlin says, I do have a feeling we tried to get Besser and Mangiapane, and I buy that wholeheartedly. it definitely sounds like the Jets were in on Besser. It came out today that Vancouver actually got him because they were the only team to go to 7 years. So again, I think that's encouraging. Imagining that the Jets were in that bidding war, that they were going higher AAV for shorter term, something I prefer. And I had someone reach out today and suggest that they offered Mangiapane more money than he got in Edmonton. But talk about a great rebound your value, try and win a cup spot than Edmonton. Like that signing from them.
Yep, absolutely.
Though I wanted to ask you this question because I do think it's a fascinating one right now. What if KFC from base, how low can you go? What if KFC decides it's time to move on? Just preparing for the possibility. If you're KFC right now, are you rushing to ink long term? What do you think that looks like? What does that conversation look like right now?
I think with Ehlers going this offseason, if that's the way it plays out, and all signs are pointing to that, I think the team gets real aggressive, and I don't think there's any chance they let Kyle Connor go. He's going to re-sign. They'll give him essentially whatever the agent is asking for. They can't. At that point, you're rebuilding. You're stripping it down if you're letting Kyle Connor
I don't buy
walk.
that.
I think they are. I think the way they view him, I think the way the team sees Kyle Connor, especially with the way that the rest of the lineup is coming along, I don't think there's any chance that he doesn't have his name on a long-term big money deal. I don't think it's possible.
Our boy Luke wore that jersey to a bar once, and it was simultaneously the best and worst night. So what I'm trying to say that I don't agree with here is I don't agree that trading Kyle Connor signifies a rebuild at all.
It changes the whole makeup of the team. That's.
Is that not a good thing?
It is, but I don't think you're making that trade and being a contender in the same window.
Not this year, but the
or
year
next year
after. Okay, 2 years down the line, I think Scheifele
with a 2 year older Mark
be...
Scheifele, a 2 year older. I don't know, man.
They'll still contribute.
Oh, that's asking a lot. In 2 years, I think it's even still too short to win on a Kyle Connor trade.
So with where the market goes, what is that number he's asking for? And I'll put it this way, actually. We saw something interesting happen with the Isles, and I love how they made out with it. They wanted to sign Dobson at first, and he gave them what in negotiations is called a fuck you number.
Yep.
If the team's going to sign it, sure. But if that's the piece of business that you want to get done, or trade me and I'll sign less elsewhere, which is what happened with Dobson. Great pickup by your Habs too, by the way.
Yeah.
Your Habs are the model for what I would love to see. They're not going that far with it, and I don't think they need to. I think they have a better base than when the Habs started.
Yep.
But your Habs are coming quick, and I hate to see it because that fan base other than you makes me miserable.
I'm real excited for this year. I'm real excited for this season.
Noah Dobson was such a perfect ad.
Yep.
Now they just got to find the 2C, which every team's looking for right now.
Everybody needs. Jets included.
But let's say with where the market's going, I think he signs. I've heard nothing to suggest he won't sign.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to wake up to a 32 thoughts from Elliot Friedman saying, word around the league as teams are preparing for a Kyle Connor bid. Because personally, everyone knows where I stand on that. I actually think that's the trade that they could win and get back into things within 2 years if they committed to. What if he asks for 13-14 million? Do you think it's still feasible?
14 million, you start getting into some tough conversations, I think. I don't know if it's going to take that much. I think we're going to be seeing I think it's going to be between 12-ish. I think that's going to be kind of the number where we're going to be sitting at, 11.81 kind of thing, maybe into the 12s, but I don't see it getting into that 14 number. Cause you have some tough conversations at that point. That's a ridiculously big jump for where you're going. So, but I don't think it'll take that much. The way he's talked about his future, the way that the team, I think, is looking at it, I think they're going to get this one done. Still in a big number. It's not going to come cheap. This is going to be the biggest deal by far the Jets have ever signed. But I think they get it done.
I expect them to get it done this summer. I'm just very much in the camp for where I think the Jets need to go. That if he asked or if he said he wasn't signing, I do think it's a gift. I do, because I think Caitlin's right over on YouTube. Says I think it might be a good thing long term, but management clearly wants to build a forward core around Casey and Scheifele, and I agree with that. And it's also why the cup window doesn't really exist, because those two as your top two just won't be good enough to get you there.
I agree.
Hell of a draft to take a step back during.
It's true.
Frosty says, does Chevy hold onto KFC at the trade deadline? It's been his MO so far. So here's where it gets interesting. Here's where it gets really interesting to me. And again, I expect him to sign this summer, but I do like the hypotheticals, and it's not done until it's done.
Yep.
Let's say he wants to see how next year plays out. How does that play out for the Winnipeg Jets?
In which way? Sorry.
If you're the GM. Kyle Connor says, I'm not signing this summer. I want to see where this team is as the season gets started. How does that go?
They say, okay. I don't think it changes their trajectory. I don't think they go to move them. I think they wait until that very last possible second if anything does happen, which again, I don't see the way of it going down that road. But yeah, I think Chevy waits. I don't think he jumps on it ahead of time.
You could be right. Like I said, I do expect him to sign, but is legitimately might get put in prison. Oh, hello?
Hey, sorry, we lost you there for a second.
Yeah, my internet blew for a second there.
There we go. So sorry.
Yeah.
The last thing was, I didn't. How do you see it going? If he tells them no, I'm not. I want some more time to see how this goes.
I see him more in the PLD vein than the Nik Ehlers vein. I said last summer I don't see them trading Nik Ehlers once the season starts, because his value on the market just would never have brought them what they needed to still compete. And I expected the Winnipeg Jets to be a playoff team. So it never made sense to me that he would get traded, because I didn't see his value on the trade market being all that hot. Now, it's since been clarified they could have traded 1 year of Ehlers for 2 years of Martin Nekis, which is interesting. Maybe we'll talk about that. I think it would actually be, like, that would put me in a straitjacket if they started the season with Kyle Connor still on the roster without a contract. Like, he's just too valuable in the NHL market. You want to talk about upping the risk tolerance on your entire organization, not just next year, but the next 10 years. That's how you do it. You that would be irresponsible work with how much he's worth on the NHL trade market, especially with how many teams missed because of the lack of quality in UFA. Now, again, I don't think we end up down this path.
No.
But if he doesn't ink this summer, you have to trade him this summer. You have to.
I think he sees Connor. I think he sees Connor as re-signing no matter what. So I don't know if he would even be looking to make that proactive move. I think they are dead set on having him. I don't see a world where they let Nik Ehlers walk to free agency and then trade Kyle Connor in back-to-back off seasons.
John Chan says KFC's holding all the cards here. Jets have no leverage. I think this is a real fascinating one. I really do, especially with the talk of an internal cap. I think that should be something we should expect as of next year. The fact he's in a position to really put them over a barrel if he wanted to. That's what I'm more intrigued about today with where the summer's gone than I think I was 2 weeks ago.
That would be, oh man, that one is pushing Retool to a whole new level, I think. That's going to be...
It's supercharging it, buddy. It's the best thing that could happen to a Retool, I'm telling you right now.
I think you're lashing out a little bit here because we're losing Nik Ehlers and not Kyle Connor. I think you're lashing out a little bit here. I'm just saying.
Let's play it out here. What is there more value in over the next 8 years from an organizational asset standpoint? Kyle Connor at, let's call it 12. Let's call it 12 mil.
12, yeah.
We won't push it to the fuck you 14. Let's go 12 mil. Where is there more surplus value in Kyle Connor's trade market and what teams would give up for him and what that means over the next 8 years, or him signed at 12 mil from his age 30 to 37 season, I don't think it's even close.
It all comes down to your risk tolerance. Are you willing to make the bet that Chevy wins that trade to the extent that in a short amount of time, before Mark Scheifele is done, before Connor Hellebuck is done, before Josh Morrissey is done, you're going to bet that Chevy is able to win that trade, get those pieces back, have them be productive members in time for a Stanley Cup run? Is not impossible, but that is the risk side of it, as opposed to what you're getting in a 30 to potentially 50 goal scorer in that range. A guy that sells tickets that you drafted, that we've talked about Chevy's absolute attachment to his guys. It's tough, man. It's really, really tough I think if you're going down the road of moving Kyle Connor, I think you start to look at what is an actual rebuild as opposed to a retool.
Not a chance. Not a chance. I agree with Mike Friesen here. This ends with an 8-year contract for Connor.
Yes,
I expect it.
agree.
I'm expecting the big announcement this summer.
Yep.
But it is fun to talk about until we can't there.
Is there anybody in the league that you think, where would you want to be shopping Connor? What's your dream return for Kyle Connor?
So it's kind of the same situation Rasmus Anderson's in, where you'd have to ask him his 3 or 4 or 5 teams he'd be going to, because you'd get way more with an extension.
100%.
But I'll say this, and I have my palms. I have my problems with some of Chevy's work. Most of it not, actually. I lash out sometimes. There isn't a GM in the NHL I want in that batter's box than Kevin Cheveldayoff with Kyle Connor as the trade chip. I think it would make the PLD trade look like peanuts. I truly believe that. It would be Jose Bautista in the playoffs. Bat flip. I believe this in my heart of hearts that Chevy would be the guy to knock that out of the park.
We need to make sure we have that clipped for the next time somebody says you're a Chevy hater. You just said you wouldn't want any other GM in the league to handle a Kyle Connor trade. That's a big praise.
Maybe Bill Zito.
Maybe Bill Zito. Yeah. That's right.
Ron Chenold says over on YouTube, I'm tuning in now. Just want to say I'm tickled pink to see you boys live again. Great to see you in the chat. Appreciate the kind words. That is like Chevy's wheelhouse. I think that'd be his legacy trade. I truly do, but I don't think we end up there. So it's been fun to chat about. I know his strong areas. I know his weak points, and that's just serving up a meatball with the most overvalued type of asset in the trade market. Now, I also do think you could do this soft sell, soft retool, and keep Kyle Connor around. I do think that there's avenues that happens, but I do think it's harder in that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anywhere else you wanted to go today?
We're not going to talk about Tanner Pearson, another Stanley Cup champion?
Hey, we're bringing cups in.
That's right.
We're bringing cups in.
Yeah, guys who know how to win.
This one feels a little too. This one feels like winger Matt Hendricks a little too much to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Bringing in Scheifele's Matt Hendricks.
Yeah. Found a video of them doing an interview together back in junior that I posted for people to check out. Clearly a great bond, but I would have liked him. I think we've had a really good offseason in NHL 17.
Yeah, absolutely. They're really going back to the glory days that year.
I think we'd be excited in NHL 17 right now.
Well,
so we got some.
They looked at the roster from that year, right? And they're like, well, the Jets were great that year. Let's see who else was good that year.
No Tanev, no Appleton's a win for me. If they wanted to trade and get some picks back for Luke Schenn, I think that'd be another win for me.
That would be nice if they could recoup something there.
We missed Hayden Fleury's back 2 years, $950K.
Yep. Which is fine. He fits the system. He gets well. He works well with you can put him on either of the 2 bottom pairings depending on injury or whatever. It's fine. It's great. He can ride the pine some nights. He can play bottom pairing. It's fine.
Yeah. No, it's one of those deals. Hey, it's about the money I thought he'd get.
Yep.
You're
no problem with that one at all.
to get through. He's familiar. Sure, why not?
You know what? Harrison points out, worth shouting out, the Moose might not be asked this year. They've got enough, players in that space right now that, Calder Cup maybe.
Hey, no, this is one thing I really did like about the Jets. So shout out Harrison. This is one thing even better than the flexibility. I'm content with the flexibility. I think that's valuable, and I think the league's shifting, and I think the Jets are going to have to shift against it at some point here.
Yep.
But some of the depth signings for the Moose, I think it's a very good sign that they identified how bad the Moose have been.
Yeah.
I went to one game last year and decided I wasn't going to spend any more money. That was a hard pro hockey team to watch.
Yep. It was brutal.
And they're going to be graduating some prospects. Jager's going to be there. Barlow's going to be there. Salmonson likely starts there. Frage might be there. They surrounded them with some quality depth. You got Phil Di Giuseppe coming in, the pizza boy. Walker Dewar used to be with the Flames.
Yep.
A former first-round pick I used to be intrigued by in Fagemo from LA.
Yep.
There's a point-a-game AHL player to maybe put beside a Lambo.
We love our former LA first-round picks that we try to recover from.
I think they got a good haul. Former Logan Stanley debate, Cale Clegg, has entered the org.
Yep.
So that'll help the D side as well. I actually really liked their vision with trying to bring in quality, what I would call quad A guys for the Moose team next year. That's going to have some more prospects that the Jets need developing here.
Like Hulk says, no reason for Frage to sign the ELC if he's not coming. It's possible.
Yeah, there's that too.
Yep,
yeah,
right.
That's possible too.
How do you feel? How do you feel about Lambert and Chibi, the two guys from last year who are, we thought were kind of on the edge, on the cusp of maybe fighting for a spot? How do you feel about them in training camp this year?
I still think Chibi gets a strong look.
Yep.
Here's another part of this soft thing with me, this soft retool on the fly, based on where I think the year starts. I think they're going to identify pretty early on how slow this forward group is, and that might open a window for Lambert. I do wonder a little bit about guys like Pearson, Koepke blocking, Gustav Nyquist blocking a Chibi look. But I'd imagine, maybe not, looking at the roster now, maybe one gets a look.
Chibi was looking fairly promising until the injury, so there's a possibility there. And yeah, Lambert just didn't take the step that they needed him to last year. So I think training camp's going to be a big part of whether or not he's going to be able to be that first call up, or if it's going to be Chibrikov. I think those are your two younger quote unquote ish guys that'll be the first looks if there are more injuries or things start going wrong. But yeah, with Koepke and Nyquist and Pearson coming in, that's filling up a lot of the spots that you were hoping, or that we were all hoping, that Chibrikov was going to get.
Yeah, and as Elias McCracken says, there will be injuries. Yep. Yeah, I think the Moose and the prospects being surrounded by quality players will help. I think you're going to need to see some of those guys in the next 2 years. To summarize, I like that they're coming out of free agency with the flexibility to go two different directions here, and one I feel they need a lot more than the other, big picture. And there's still a lot of summer left. Chevy's wheelhouse is post-free agency, not during it. We'll move into Gilbert Marion asks, been living at the lake. Good on you, Gilbert. Hope it's been treating you well. Some great weather this summer. How was Ireland? I know I disappeared for a little while and did my first trip overseas to Ireland, where my family's originally from, and had a great experience. Honestly, if you're someone that wants to go to Ireland, do it. I spent a week by myself in Dublin and had the time of my life. It was very eye-opening. And then my extended family, my brothers and whatnot, came out the next week, and we traveled some of the smaller areas of Ireland. I might even be a dual citizen by the end of the summer. So that was definitely a great experience. Glad I got to do it. Glad I get to be back here for what is probably going to be our last episode of the summer, pending a big trade, I assume. I assume we find out Ehlers has gone east tomorrow, and we'll see how Chevy responds. With that being said, I really want to thank everyone that's given this program, given us the time, have been there to chat. Mikey, do we have the phone line ready?
Oh yeah, we can fire that up.
You know what? We'll get a call in here. Ludovic Pro fan club wants to call in and chat quick. I'll get to the thank yous and the personal stuff after. Let's chat.
Let me fire that up 1 sec.
We'll open it up. Art signs the Padre Line tattoo. I definitely got the tatty of the Leprechaun playing hockey. 7.5 hours in the chair. Fun day.
That's a fun day. There we go. Phone lines are open. 1-204-800-0409. Get on the line and give us a call.
Ludovic, Perot Fan Club. Let's hear from you. And then a couple announcements on the way out.
So with the, you did mention earlier, and somebody asked in the chat, and I should have wrote down who it was. Is there because you said there's, maybe Chevy does find a trade still out there, right? As teams are kind of starting to fit under the cap. Is there anybody that you've had your eye on in that type of tight cap situation?
Smaller potatoes. I really want Evan Rodriguez out of Florida. 2 years, $3 million.
Yep.
Doesn't really solve the top six need now. And I kind of looked at him where you have that Nyquist money.
Yep.
But hey, if you could bring in another quality mid-six guy like that drives play a little bit, has a couple cups now. They could use some scoring, but I would take a guy like that.
Okay.
St. Louis is currently over the cap. Dallas is over the cap. Montreal is over the cap. Vegas is over. Vegas, Pietrangelo will solve theirs.
Yes.
And then if the Rangers, Tampa Bay, were one of the teams to sign Ehlers, Tampa's a little harder. Their only contract that doesn't have a no-trade clause is Hagel, and they're not trading him.
Yeah.
Rangers, Murat had speculated about the idea of Alexis Lafreniere or Will Cull.
Okay.
And those were very intriguing. I do wonder about Seattle a little bit. I don't know what the plan is in Seattle, and they don't have to trade anyone. They have a lot of cap space. But talk about a team with just a bunch of similar forwards.
Yeah.
It seems like that they're always trading off and acquiring.
Reacquiring.
Maybe you could do something there. We'll see what starts to leak out here as teams get off the drunken sailor season.
Yeah.
Gilbert asks, so is Nyquist signing, does that mean Ehlers has decided to leave? That's my takeaway from it.
Yeah.
We'll find out. They don't have the money now to pull it off. They were their offseason was down to having money for Ehlers, Velarde, Sandberg, Barron, and 3.45 unless they clear out some money elsewhere. I have trouble seeing them getting to Ehlers' money. My immediate thought was Ehlers might have notified them that they weren't in the final couple teams, but I could be totally wrong on that.
Yep, we might be misreading it. Although to sign Ehlers now at a big money contract, you're going to have to start getting real creative with your RFAs.
Julian said Jared McCann would be a legit second-line winger. Hey, we all know I love me some Jared McCann.
We've been wanting that one for a while.
Been wanting that one for a while. My boy Ryan McLeod got a nice 4x5. Yeah. Good on him.
Yep.
I do wonder a little bit still. Get a little center help in. Get a little flexibility. Cody Glass. So the Devils didn't want to qualify offer him, and then they started getting calls from a bunch of the league. He signed a 2x2.5 today.
Yep.
If you want a little bit of help up the middle that could play on the wing, maybe you bring the Winnipegger there too.
Yep.
Jay Pick says the only solution is Paulie Walnuts. Hey, maybe Toews gets Patty Sharp to come out of retirement. Who knows?
Oh yeah.
Who knows?
Great. That's what we need.
But our friend Ludwig has not called in, so I'm gonna take us out here today.
Sounds good.
I want to thank everybody that's given this show some time, that has come here and commented, that has interacted with me outside the show. I've gotten DMs every day from different people. If you want to talk hockey, feel free to shoot me a message. I love it. I've gotten to talk to Discord groups. Oh, we got a call.
There he is.
We'll get to that after.
Hey, caller, you're on the landing strip. What's your name and what would you like to talk about?
Oh, can you mute the back?
Oh, yeah.
Mute the show. Thank you.
Hey, how's it going? You guys can hear me okay there?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, here we go. Muted the back here. You guys can hear me okay?
Perfect.
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Oh. No, I can't hear you guys, man.
Ah, fuck. God damn it.
What's going on?
God damn it. Not a whole lot. How's it going?
Something's broken here.
Okay, we're gonna have to come, Mikey. We'll do this another
No,
time.
I can't hear you guys at all. I'm gonna have to walk away.
You can't hear us?
Okay, I got
Can't hear
it
us.
right here. You guys are a bit in the background,
Okay.
but yeah, no, it's going well.
Right on. Well,
What do you got on your mind today, bud?
Not too much, but I just wanted to preach for my guy Brad Lambert.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear that sweet Brad Lambert hype.
Yeah, no. So I just wanted to proudly announce that I'm the president of the Brad Lambert fan club, officially recognized by the Illegal Curve, my boy Dave Minuk himself. So it's a pretty big honor. But I've watched 12 or 13, maybe 14 Moose games this year, and just wanted to say, like, some games Brad Lambert, he had a lot of off games, unfortunately. Like, you see the potential in him, and it's just like, you wish you could take over. Like, sincerely, it's like his skills are undeniable, but there's just some games you just like, oh my God, like, I wish Jeff Malott was back on the Moose. Because, man, him and Lambert together, they were so sick. But with the recent acquisitions, man, I'm excited to kind of see what's going on there. But yeah, last year's Moose team, if you look at purely numbers, this might be a hot take. I don't think Chibrikov had the best season in the AHL either. Brad Lambert obviously didn't, but no one's really going after Chibi because, put up 3 points in 4 games in the NHL or whatever. And dude, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, just wanted to say that and kind of preach a bit for Brad, because I think if we send him back to the Moose, I don't know how happy he'll be being a Winnipeg Jet long term,
No, and I do think that is something to keep in mind. And on the Chibi versus Lambert stuff, I do think Lambert has a much higher ceiling, just based on how the Jets have kind of handled prospects before. I think they'll see a hole that they perceive Chibrikov's more ready for or to play in than Lambert, is kind of why I kind of lean towards Chibrikov earlier than Lambert. But I do think long-term Lambert should be the better player.
For sure. And one thing I also do want to preach for Brad Lambert, if we think of how Brad Lambert just looks and skates and the way that he impacts the team offensively, his number one player comparable, in my opinion, has to be Nikolaj Ehlers. Out of everyone in the NHL that I know, the speed's undeniable, the agility is undeniable, just the offensive vision. It's like, okay, like, you're not going to see Nikolaj Ehlers, a lot of Jets fans say this about Brad Lambert, but, he doesn't, battle in the corners, this and that. I don't know the last time, Nikolaj Ehlers was going in the corner with a guy like, I don't know, Milan Lucic, just for example. No, he's way out of his prime, and I don't even know if he's still in the league. But, Lambert gets so much criticism for that, and I feel like he's kind of a dark horse in the Jets fan base, and, that's why I'm here calling today. So,
thank you for the call and being a part of the show. I like the Lambert hype. I like the idea that he could be a dark horse, especially with your player comp, and the idea I do think he is walking out the door tomorrow. So, hey, that could be a big internal push if he shows up to camp and wins a spot, and he could provide that this team's going to need speed. Looking at the forwards they got signed in the NHL, they're going to need a burner at some point, and I do think if it's not early in the season, I do think they're going to have to recognize that, and Lambert becomes that call-up. Because that forward group's gonna need some pace at some point here next year.
Yeah, I don't think Toews and frickin' what's his name, Nyquist, who's a couple years out from an amazing season, but from what I've seen online, Nyquist is not a very popular guy out in Minnesota. A lot of fans, from what I saw, were saying it's like, he cost them the season and stuff like that, but. It's
0 5-on-5 points
that
since
doesn't
getting
really
traded to the Wild.
translate over, and we see 2023, 2024 Gustav Nyquist for $3.5 million. So
Yeah.
hoping I'm right about that, but
hey, the one thing that has remained true, the Winnipeg Jets have gotten a lot of juice out of guys they've brought in. So hey, I'm pulling for the best out of old 35-year-old Gustav Nyquist.
yeah, out of all the guys though that the Jets picked up, all the old scrubs, hoping Jonathan Toews pulls through. And I heard through a buddy who has connections down to his trainer out in Arizona, and he's saying it's like Toews looks sharp. So I'll
love that.
I'll take his word for it. I don't know. Don't want to hype the Jets fans up too much and get disappointed, but that's just what I heard. I'm not getting too excited, but watch out for Jonathan Toews as a sleeper, who's another guy who I think gets a bit too much criticism by Jets fans. Yeah, he's 37. Yeah, he's 2 years out from playing. But you got to think, man, that's Captain Serious.
Yes, sir.
That is
He doesn't
Captain
play
Serious.
games. He's freaking serious about coming back. And a guy as serious as that would not go out there and embarrass himself. He'll be ready.
And I buy
You
that.
heard
So
it here
I do
first.
have. Hey, thank you for the call, Mr. President of the Brad Lambert train. And thanks for bringing the Toews hype, because I do buy some of what you're saying there too. Is like, one thing I don't like to do is write off legacy players completely. There's a reason they were at that level. And I do think he's going to be an NHL quality player. My big question remains at 37 is just what level that gets to. And hey, if he's looking sharp, I'm ready to buy in. So I'm taking your word here. We're going to start the Toews hype at the end of the show after kind of poo-pooing it on it a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I guess the glass half full way to look at it is he's been away from hockey for 2 years, absolutely, but that's 2 years of rest, of recoup, of no miles on the tires, so to speak. He wasn't out there getting smashed around for 2 full years. So yeah, maybe he comes in best shape of his life, ready to go. It'll be, if he has any type of positive production this year, it's going to be such a huge story, and rightfully so. It's awesome.
So we'll leave it there. Toews is back. He's bringing back the clock. And Gilbert, this is a good point too from Gilbert. I do think this is true, and this where maybe it downplays the risk a little bit. Gilbert says he'll know immediately Toews will retire if he doesn't think he can play. So it downsizes the risk, because I do buy that. I do truly believe that. I think he would have been a Jet at the trade deadline if he thought he was ready. I very strongly believe that. But we'll see. We'll see.
Dante seems to believe that the tires were already bald before he went on the break. How do you feel about that?
They were definitely balding.
Maybe they got retreaded.
Hey, sometimes you just got to go find yourself in India and bring it all back. It's okay. I do want to thank the audience, every single person that's given this show time, love, comments, debates, going back and forth with each other, the highs, the lows. Really liked our growth this past year. And this show and this community that we've really built up here, thanks to you. Like, this show happens because of you guys. Me and Mikey love to just chat. We'd be doing this without this show or with it.
Yep.
But you guys make this show. And as you guys know, I've shared my personal life a little bit this past year. And this show really helped me get through. So you guys really helped me keep my head level, dealing with losing my dad, who I used to talk about doing the podcast with after every episode, getting cancer in January, which unfortunately I found out this morning it has spread, and I will be starting chemotherapy in 2 to 3 weeks. So after this show, it'll likely be a summer of quiet on the old landing strip as I go to battle in that regard. But we will be back to start next season. Right from game one, the landing strip will continue. We're working on some interesting things behind the background. So if you're an ideas guy and you think there's something you're missing from Jets content, feel free to give me a shout, and maybe we'll come together to do that. We're talking to some local businesses this summer, which has been a pretty cool opening for sponsorship. So if you're out there and you want to market a little bit, feel free to give us a shout as we look to keep building what we started this year. And that's something that I think is really special, that this community show has got into this stage and there's still ways to go. I appreciate all the love in the chat after what I just said. I'm going to beat it. I'm not worried. I got this. And we will see you guys at the rink next year, and then every post game over here on the landing strip, where the chat, the conversation, and the calls will be driven by you, and we'll be here to hang out. I hope every one of you has a great summer, and we'll see you next season.
Right on. Good night, everybody.